It was the kind of afternoon people moved to the suburbs for. The sun was warm but not hot, filtered through maple branches swaying gently over the driveway. Lawn mowers buzzed in the distance. Someone 2 blocks down was grilling, and the scent of barbecue floated lazily through the air. Birds chirped. A breeze played with the wind chimes. And for a moment, Angela felt like the world was actually okay. She stood barefoot on the porch arranging lunch on a small table. Peanut butter sandwiches for Caleb, turkey wraps for herself, lemonade in 2 mason jars. The 10-year-old boy sat cross-legged on the pavement nearby, drawing chalk trains across the driveway with unmatched focus. The tracks curled and looped around his feet like something sacred. He was humming a soft, repeating tune, not a song exactly, just a rhythm that matched his thoughts. That was Caleb's way. His autism made words difficult, but sounds were safe, comforting. The humming was part of his language, one Angela had come to understand and love. "Looking good, buddy," she smiled. He didn't look up, just smiled too and kept drawing. Then the air changed. A black SUV with tinted windows and a matte finish turned the corner and rolled up the street like it didn't belong, like it owned the place. It didn't park normally. It stopped at an angle across their driveway, tires crunching over the chalk drawings. Angela frowned. 2 men stepped out. They wore tactical-looking vests that screamed wannabe, not official. Their outfits were dark with white block letters reading HOA enforcement. But there were no patches, no name tags, no badges, just cheap sunglasses and stiff posture. Angela stood up slowly, uneasy. "Can I help you?" she asked, cautious. The taller man, thick-necked and red-faced, pulled out a clipboard. "We've had repeated complaints about noise violations coming from this address." Angela blinked. Noise? What kind of noise? The second man, leaner, twitchier, pointed directly at Caleb. "Him. That's screaming." Angela's chest tightened. "He's not screaming. He's autistic. That's called stimmying. It helps him regulate." The taller man didn't care. He stepped forward. "Well, the neighborhood has rules, and we're enforcing them." "That's not how this works," Angela snapped. "You don't have any right." "He needs to learn silence," the man muttered. Then it happened. Without warning, without hesitation, the taller man raised his boot and kicked Caleb hard in the shin. The boy let out a piercing cry, falling backward and scraping his palms on the pavement. His eyes widened in shock and pain. His arms flailed as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. Angela screamed, "Hey!" She rushed forward, but the second man shoved her, knocking her off balance. She stumbled, caught herself on the railing, and turned just in time to see Caleb trying to crawl away, still crying. "You monsters! Get away from him!" she yelled, trembling. The men didn't back off. And in that moment, with Caleb's whimpers, Angela's voice cracking with panic, and the quiet hum of birds still hanging in the air like nothing was wrong, a third voice broke through. "Low, calm, dangerous. Step away from my grandson." Both men froze. Angela turned. At the far end of the yard, past the garden arch lined with ivy, stood a man in his late 60s. Not tall, not broad, but unshakable. Legs apart, arms loose at his sides, head slightly tilted. His eyes were locked on the 2 men, cold and calculating. He wore a tucked-in collared shirt, gray slacks, and sensible shoes. No drama, no bluster, but the silence around him grew heavy, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. James, Angela's father, Caleb's grandfather, a man she loved, respected, feared, just a little. He didn't raise his voice often. He didn't have to. The taller thug sneered. "This ain't your business, Grandpa." James took 1 step forward. "You just assaulted a disabled child," he said, voice still calm, and pretended to be law enforcement. His gaze drifted downward, pausing at the vest. "Wearing fake authority is a crime. But hurting my grandson? That's something else entirely." Angela didn't breathe. Caleb had gone quiet now, eyes wide, tears drying on his cheeks. The men exchanged a glance. The second one suddenly didn't look so sure. "You better back off," the first said, reaching for something on his belt. James didn't move. "You've made a mistake. A serious one." Angela felt the shift, like a storm cloud had passed overhead. The world was about to correct itself, violently. James stepped forward again. The world seemed to hold its breath. He didn't look like a threat. That was the most unnerving part. He wasn't towering or muscular. He didn't shout, wave his arms, or reach for anything. But the weight behind his presence, Decades of discipline, operations, and controlled violence settled into the air like a storm front moving in. The two fake cops didn't know it, but they were about to confront a man who had once interrogated warlords, neutralized terrorist cells, and navigated political collapses with nothing more than a briefcase and a stare. "You've got 3 seconds," James said. "Back away from the boy." The leaner thug hesitated. His hand, which had started to go for something clipped to his vest, dropped. "Look, old man," the taller snapped. "You're not part of the HOA board. You have no idea what this kid's been doing. He's been causing problems for weeks. People want quiet." "What people?" "We're responding to official complaints." "Filed by whom?" "Silence. You're not from the HOA. You're not even from this neighborhood." Angela, still shaken, stood next to Caleb and gently helped him sit up. The boy clutched her arm, his eyes still locked on James like he knew instinctively that he was safe now. James took another step. "I asked you a question." The taller man tensed. "You really want to do this?" "No," James said, stepping onto the lawn. "I don't." He paused. "But you already did." And with that, the atmosphere snapped. The first man lunged forward, not with strategy, not with training, just brute force. A clumsy swing of the arm meant to push or punch. It never landed. James stepped diagonally in a move so fluid it seemed rehearsed. He caught the man's wrist midair, twisted, and dropped his shoulder. The sound of impact, the man's body slamming against the fence, echoed through the yard. Wood cracked. Air escaped the thug's lungs in a hard oof as he crumpled. The second man blinked, stunned. James was already on him. A pivot, a sweep, a sharp elbow to the throat. The man stumbled backward, choking. Before he could recover, James stepped behind him, locked an arm under his chin, and gently but firmly laid him face first into the grass. No yelling, no theatrics, just precision. Angela gasped. "Dad." James didn't look away from the men. "Check Caleb," he said calmly. She turned. Caleb was shaken but breathing normally now. He had gone quiet, processing the event in his way. His fingers curled and uncurled at his sides, a sign that his mind was still trying to find balance. One of the men groaned. James crouched beside him. "Let me make something very clear," he said, voice low. "I don't know what scam you're running, but if you ever put your hands on my family again," he leaned in closer, "you won't be able to walk away next time." He stood and stepped back, pulling a small phone from his pocket. Not a flashy smartphone, just a simple old-school flip. He dialed without looking. 911, "What's your emergency?" "Yes, this is James Holloway. I'm at 312 Marshall Drive. 2 individuals impersonating law enforcement have just assaulted my autistic grandson. One has minor injuries. The other may have a concussion. Send officers." "Are they armed?" James glanced at the men on the ground. "No, they're not going anywhere." Click. He turned toward Angela. "You okay?" Angela swallowed, nodding slowly. "Yeah, I didn't know you were coming today." "I was early," James said. "Thought I'd surprise you both." "You did," she whispered. Sirens, distant but growing louder, wailed from the edge of the neighborhood. The taller man stirred. "You're dead, old man. We got connections." James looked down at him with the tired expression of someone who had heard greater threats from worse men in worse places. "You're not even worth a file report," he muttered. As the sirens closed in, neighbors began to emerge from their homes. Cell phones recorded. Whispers spread. Angela nodded, holding Caleb close. James didn't move. He stood guard, eyes sharp, arms folded, shoes planted like roots. Caleb, who had been crying 5 minutes ago, was now watching his grandfather in silence. Safe. Still. The chaos that had broken into their peace was contained. For now.